Good evening, Pokemon trainers. So, I'm really excited to share some of my autographed cards with you, but I'm equally excited to share some of my thoughts on getting your cards autographed. So, there's there's this conventional wisdom floating around the internet that says your cards are worth less and everyone or nearly everyone is going to treat them as damaged if you are getting them signed. When talking with the most high-end collectors, that doesn't seem to be an opinion that is taken as gospel, to take it so seriously and all that. If getting your card signed makes you happy, it is what you should do. People make a really good argument to me that the getting the card autographed brings it full circle. It goes from something that someone else generates, whether it's through the game design or creating the characters or doing the art, and that goes through the product machine and it comes out the other end and it lands in your hands as a player, a consumer, a collector. From there, these people might not see that card again. But in some cases, you're lucky enough to meet them and get to spend some time with them. And whether or not they sign your card, you get to kind of go home with that good memory. And so I do understand that, like, hey, I don't need the card to be signed to have that memory. But on the flip side, sports collectors have made some interesting arguments about this too. Your baseball was not in mint condition before the player signed it. It was used and roughed up, and sure, it wasn't destroyed, but we can be real with one another that a little bit of ink is not defaming the integrity of the item. If anything, baseballs are not special without something else going on about them. And so to get that signature, to get that, verification that it's the baseball that broke the record in the home run derby kind of thing, like those are different. What someone signs is part of what matters too. Muhammad Ali signed boxing gloves are worth significantly more than plain boxing gloves, but they're also worth more than Muhammad Ali oven mitts, right? Like, yeah, I bet he used some at some point in his life, but it's not what he's known for. So bringing that to some signed cards that I have here, I should also grab a signed raw deal card or two that is kind of more iconic. So okay, so I've got let's add 3 cards to the layout here. So in these we've got a big mix of cards here. So Candice Michelle is someone who was in WWE, but also had some other famousness and exposure out there. If you'd I think she's doing some political stuff right now. I don't know, but so she's not someone limited to WWE, but getting her signature is it's part of the gameplay for Raw Deal that you'd have a signature card like this. So I was gonna collect someone's, and so collecting hers at the time was of interest to me, and here it is. Some of the autographs I have here. So Victoria is an example of somebody who would only be known to people within wrestling, and she's not someone of the level of The Rock or Hulk Hogan or Stone Cold Steve Austin that even someone only vaguely familiar would know who she is. She's probably not going to be someone who has a legacy that goes far beyond her death. This card without her signature is totally worthless, though. So of course it would make sense to get her to sign it. And then, so I'm gonna move cards away as I have kind of talked about them to keep the focus a little bit. So then I've got 3 cards here actually that have been signed by people who unfortunately passed away. We've got an Eddie Guerrero signature card, which this was a memory for me that it was a card I won myself playing in a Raw Deal tournament way back in the day. So that's always going to be extra special to me. But Eddie Guerrero very famously died young as a wrestler, and so there are simply no more knew Eddie Guerrero signatures. The same is true for Baron Vangertoth, who was one of the designers on Raw Deal. But now more people are going to know who Eddie Guerrero was than who Baron is, because Eddie was a famous wrestler who's probably one tier below like Stone Cold Steve Austin in terms of famousness. But the frequency at which Baron signed cards might be unprecedented among game designers. And so I think, on one hand, there's a fair argument to be made that the demand of the signature of someone who worked on a game that's no longer in print is lower, and the frequency means that those signatures are more accessible. I think Baron actually signed a sufficiently large quantity of cards to create a market for the cards he signed, even while he was still alive. Like they felt attainable to someone who was perhaps not an ultra collector. And so I think there's something really cool about that he was able to kind of shape things and make those signatures widespread. And then I've got a signed Magi Nation card here. I've got Hiron's Call, was a very playable competitive card, signed by Phil Tavel, who worked on the game. Phil was someone who came to our local store and was an incredible ambassador of the game. Really one of those people that, looking back, like a fantastic role model for if you want to be a friendly person working in the game industry. Phil would have been somebody you could have taken a lot of notes from. And so it's cool that I get to have a card signed by him. On the flip side, like how many Magi Nation cards are probably too many, but not a whole bunch of Hiron's Call that they're not like super common or anything. So it's cool that one of the cards I would keep anyway is a signed card. So now let's consider some Pokemon cards here. So there's kind of two batches here. The one batch came out before the rule that they had to make the autograph out as what some collectors would call an inscription. So this says to Jimmy, and this one says to Jimmy on it as well. They both have the artist's signature here. This is Fukuda, and it also has the date. This one also has a Blastoise sketch on it, which is awesome. I love Blastoise. It's a Pokemon from Generation 1 that I have a strong connection to from playing the video games as well as winning many tournaments with him. So glad to have Blastoise on those. And so these cards are not going to have a lot of value for me to trade them to other people, because how many collectors named Jimmy are there, right? It doesn't resonate with people in that way. But I'll always kind of have them as a great memory of a trip to Texas and getting some stuff signed. So that's neat. Now, these cards are a little bit different as well. So these are signed by Koki Saito, and you'll notice here that he's added a Pikachu to each, but the Shining Arceus has the regular Pikachu, whereas these three kind of have the Cherry Blossom Pikachu going on. He's kind of got the Cherry Blossom afro going on. And then even within these, there's three different faces. So these are a really good example of something that sports people talk about, where the quality of the signature and additional embellishments start to impact the desirability. I wasn't sure if I wanted to try and keep these, if I wanted to try and sell them later, and that's why I got multiple ones signed. But honestly, the memory and the character of the cards is a very compelling reason for me to keep them. That I actually have three different emotions from Pikachu here. I've got laughing, happy, and surprised or totally overjoyed. And so it's really cool that I was able to get the same card signed three times, but they don't feel like carbon copies. And that really intrinsically speaks to the thumbprint nature of autograph cards. So I wanted to make a point before recording this video of going and looking at what some other smart people knew and thought about getting autograph cards. So, first thing, fire up Google and read a lot of awful takes, and I don't subject yourself to it is my advice. Um, but I did learn a little bit, but it was really in asking my own network through Facebook, just having met, um, you know, at least 1,000 people who played Pokemon in my life and other games and all that, getting to hear their stories about how their signed cards were kind of such a great memory book for them. And, you're going to make memories in a ton of different ways, from playing games and taking photos and participating in activities and events. But um, it's really, it's a really great memento to get a signed card when you can. And the people who really get that don't just get signed cards from the creators and the artists and the business people, but a lot of the times they get signed cards from players that they've enjoyed meeting. Um, I might be uh, in an unusual position, that having had success in Pokemon cards very early on, I don't find myself to be starstruck by people because they've won big events, because I hung out with those people, I spent time with those people, and even though even though the people that comprise such a group has changed, they're regular. They are very much regular people to me. I don't think The Rock is excited to get Ryan Reynolds' autograph, kind of, right, and like I'm not. We're not all on that level even, but um, I have gotten signed cards from players, typically just people that are my friends. Sometimes it was to celebrate their first tournament win back when we were kids. I have a counterspell signed by my friend Colin, who, he hasn't, I don't know the last time he touched a Pokemon card, but I'm still glad to have that card and that memory of his success. Um, I had a bunch of my friends all sign a copy of Teammates at Patachu when we met for breakfast the last day before leaving internats uh, in Indianapolis. So I do get that idea of kind of connecting your collection, your memories and stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't think getting autograph cards is some kind of crazy get rich scheme. But it's a great way to connect these really special moments in your vacation time, honestly, and your social life and your hobby all together. Um, I do want to say something. I want to talk about something else a little bit, because it's part of what motivated me to begin going down this path, and that is autographs being expensive uh, for each one you get is kind of a mixed blessing. So if people charge a lot of money for an autograph, it's easy to interpret that to mean they want to be the ones to kind of reap the rewards. I don't begrudge an artist who charges, let's say, $50 for an autograph, being the person in control of the value of their autograph. Because I believe whether they're charging $20 or $50 or $100, the value of the card they've signed with its signature is relatively static. That their signature is either very available or it is not. And at higher prices, I do think it's unfortunate that you have people who are priced out of receiving an autograph. But I think that you also probably have some people who are priced out of attaining 100 autographs. And if that means that, they're still going to get a few, but if instead 90 people who would otherwise never get to own an autograph card and kind of participate in that very special memory making process get to, I think that's a win for the hobby, and more than even just the individuals. The fact that there could be a really wide distribution of autograph cards is really nice in my mind. I think it's interesting that sports cards are able to kind of put those autograph cards in, and I think it's fascinating that Pokemon has applied the faux autograph treatment to cards like the Marnie card and some of the other gym leaders and stuff. Um, it's funny because Raw Deal did it first. that they have the signatures from the wrestlers, and they put it right onto the many of the cards. So that's feels ahead of the curve in terms of the collectability game in some ways. But yeah, so I going back to the expense, I think that expensive autographs kind of make sense. And the other thing is when you're considering the cost of an autograph from an artist, there's a lot of costs involved in getting in the door in those situations. You're talking about for most people a plane ticket, a hotel room, like for multiple nights, admission to the event that is going on, and or if it's not admission, it's winning a badge or something like at Worlds that you can't even buy admission to the signing area. Really, you have to win one of the tickets via your competitor bag or some other means. So it's really, I think Pokemon does a good job of making sure if you're at an event where you can get an autograph, they are relatively accessible. I wish there was better access to artist signatures for people. Like kind of going back to Baron's example, Pokemon autographs don't feel attainable to someone who is not a nearly professional level collector or a regionals grinder level player. I got some of the signatures I got were at a regionals event, and there were some logistics issues. They tried to do what they could, but all in all, it took me about 8 hours to get signatures. I don't think I would do that again, but we'll see, right? I had lost out of the event. There wasn't getting those signatures was of a lot more value to me than grinding side events. A lot of my friends were either not at the event or continuing to play in the event, and so that was kind of an unusual trade-off as well. But yeah, autographs are something special. They're not a get rich quick scheme. Get them if you can. Get them if you like them. Get them on cards you like. I know that with getting some Dice Masters cards signed, I did some research in advance, kind of, well, which artists are going to be at Comic-Con this year, and do I have cards that resonate with me that I would wait on their line to get signed? Because there were definitely cards by artists that were there, but maybe the art didn't speak to me. Maybe the cards weren't ones that I had really enjoyed playing with. And so with a limited amount of time to spend at Comic-Con, those things didn't make my list. But I did get to enjoy meeting Adam Kubert, and I did get to enjoy meeting Sarah Pacelli and kind of sharing, like there's these cards and there's this game and I have a lot of fun with it, and really appreciate your signature and all that. So yeah, I rambled a little bit here. If you've got autograph cards, I would love to see them in the comments. Let me know. I'm total noob at YouTube. If you can't upload pictures in the comments, put them on Instagram or something and tag me, I guess. But yeah, share your joyous cards with your friends, and have a good one, folks. Good night.